Right, so continuing from part one, where we were talking about tile maps and basically looking at if you've not set up your own, um, using online repositories for stuff like that. So what I've done, I've taken it a little bit further and I've kind of just knocked up a level. Just as a refresher, going back, if you remember, in order to make this fit, we had to change grid size to 18 by 18, and that was just because when we brought in a tile map, we looked at it and the way it was going to be set up due to the resolution of it. Just get my window up. So my tile map bar, yeah. So because of the resolution of it, when we were looking at it, it was kind of set to around 36 pixels. Because we've now changed grid to 18 by 18, we've reconfigured that. So you can continue, as you can see. If we change grid side, it just completely messes everything up. But then when we change it back, sorts it. So if you've kind of using one of these and it doesn't suit what you want, having something tileable at 18 by 18 pixels is going to be quite specific. If I give you an example, because we've got it set up in a 640 by 360 window, what we kind of end up with is when we hit play, that's kind of what you're going to get with 18 pixels be 18 pixels. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. But for example, if you wanted to set it up differently, what we're going to do is we'll just close all that off a minute and I'll just bring up my layers bar. I want my layers and I want my project bar. Right, so in my project bar, what we want is we're going to create a new layout. We're not going to add an event sheet to it, we're just going to create a layout only. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this grid set. We can't leave it set to 32 by 32 because if we double 18 makes 36. So if we left it at 32 by 32, it would make everything look a little bit off. It wouldn't fit in grid. So if we make it 36 by 36, what I'll do, I'll just double that number. I'll just make it 640 by 640. So we've got a bit of a bigger grid. That isn't going to work, is it? As you can see down this side, we've got kind of half a grid. So if we do, I don't know, say 620 by 640, just trying to get a rough approximation, that'll do for now. So then if we go into the tile map, what we've got is when we switch the grid on, because we've changed it to 18 by 18 back in construct and this is all sized up ready for that, what we can do, we can actually change the size of it in here. So if you've downloaded something and you're trying to make your own tile map, trying to lay out a level and it's not quite the size you want, best thing to do is if you just at where your tile map is, double click it, tile map editor, then what you've got here is your resize button. You've got a shortcut for that, Alt and R as well, and the size of this sprite sheet in total is 360 by 162. So we're going to be looking at wanting to make that bigger. What you want to do is if you tick keep aspect ratio, you're not going to get any weird stretching or warping. So if we double 360, that's 720, and then that doubles the bottom to 324. So if we click OK, you can see everything's doubled, but what it's done now, it's changed grid up a little bit. So if I just go back, and if we try using this, so if I just bring up my tile map bar, that's it. Close that layers off at a minute, we don't need that. Right, and we'll insert new object. We'll add a tile map. We'll do a brand new one. and what we'll do, we'll load it in from scratch. So we'll do it kind of like we did it before. So if we load this one in, we're going to resize that. We're going to quit out of it. We're going to go back up. And if you look now, that's in our properties. Our grid, the way it was set up, you can see now what we have. Now, what we've ended up with here, we've ended up with something a little bit odd, where it's not, you can see it's not quite right. So what we're probably better off doing is we'll have to go back in and change it. So we'll do 36 by 36. That makes it right for us, because remember before we were using it in 18. So if we drop these in, if I just drop a couple of these in as an example, just to show you what I mean. And then if I hit play, you can kind of see the difference that makes. So if we go back to level 1, you'll see what's happened now is it changes it. So because in this original tile map, I've gone in here and I've doubled the size of it, it makes everything a little bit weird. So if I go back into here, change that to 36 by 36, you can see it changes completely. Again, it makes everything bigger. So now what I'd have to do is effectively double the size of my level. So if I make the level bigger, you can see what it's done because I've changed the size of my tiling. It's affected the way my level looks. So then we go back on here, and this is going to be the same with any tile map you download. Again, if I go back to this website, I know I used this one as an example before, but if we look at 2D game assets, for example, if I just pick up this one as an example, this monochrome one, we've got that downloaded. I'll just quickly get that extracted. And then it'll be a similar affair with this one. So if we just go back, and what we'll do here, we'll just, for the sake of this, we'll just create another layout. And again, because we're using something different, we'll create a different tile map. Get that loaded in. And what we've got here, tile map, and we'll use the packed one again. Why not? So you can see this one is again a bit of an odd setup. It doesn't quite match the grid. So if we do this, if I just bring up my tile map bar, you can see we're nowhere near with this one. So if we have a look, if we just try and have a look at the original resolution of the files, we'll see if we can get some idea of where we need to be. So the original resolution of that, can we see anything in here? So it's 272 by 128. So it's 128 height. So on the height we have about 8 sections, 128. So if we just divide that down, 128 divided by 8, it's around 16. So you kind of, depending on what you're using, you're going to always have to have a look. So this one should fit nicely with what we have. As you can see, if I just make this a little bit bigger, now we've got that on 16 pixels. What you have is you've kind of got a nice little thing there. It works all right. You can kind of paint that around. It's kind of like a Game Boy Pokemon style affair. But yeah, what we're going to be doing in part 3, we're going to be looking at bringing some of this stuff to life. So now we've looked at tile mapping, and we've looked at building some basic levels. Next off, we're going to look at creating a little bit of collision. We'll look at dropping a player sprite in, and we'll look at bringing some movement to that. Thank you.